Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. In the Empire, everyone has their place. Tiny little cogs in an overwhelming machine of flesh and durasteel. If the machine is working perfectly, then the various organizations in this machine should have very little overlapping duties and should instead rely on cooperation with one another to get things done. This way, you can have more specialized agencies focused on specific tasks rather than redundancies, which can be costly and also result in inter-service rivalry. Take the Inquisitorius, for example. They're a very specialized unit. Whenever there is so much as a hint of a Jedi, a flash of their blade, a whiff of the light side, which I imagine smells like nutmeg, cinnamon, and freshly baked apples, the Inquisitorius come to town, and what a show it usually is. These are Force-sensitive hunters, covered head to toe in black cloaks, intimidating combat armor, wielding the iconic double-edged spinning lightsaber. And that's because, as we all know, Force users are difficult and dangerous subjects to track down, and sending regular military units after one is as good of an idea as sending an army of small-town cops to deal with an ex-army Green Beret hiding in the woods, running around setting up traps all over the place like some delicious Ewok warrior. Despite what some people think, the Inquisitorius were not Sith or dark side Force users. Initially, they were all Jedi who had turned against the dark side. As a matter of fact, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine had infiltrated the Jedi Temple during the Clone Wars and inserted several spies into the organization already, hoping to find future candidates for the Inquisitorius program. It was good that he did this before Order 66 because he planned on murdering everyone by killing them. While some Jedi like Barriss Offee were publicly known for their defiance of the Jedi Temple and were obvious choices for the program, others like the Grand Inquisitor, a former Jedi Temple guard, were much harder to find and reach out to. I mean, Jedi Temple guards wore masks specifically to distance themselves from the general Jedi population. They swore an oath to protect the temple. You would really need to have someone who's extremely intimate with the Jedi Order to reach someone like this and turn them against the Jedi. The Jedi were extremely vigilant and wary of dark side Force users, so it was a great risk for Palpatine to do this. But the key to flipping someone was finding weaker-minded individuals who could be scared and manipulated by the dark side of the Force. And it had to be a very specific type of person, one who was capable enough to be an Inquisitor, but also not too powerful where they would become a threat to the Sith. I actually believe that Pong Krell might have been approached by the Sith, or at least one of their spies, but he was probably deemed too ambitious for his own good. And to the Jedi's credit, not many individuals in their ranks actually would join the Inquisitorius. Out of the tens of thousands of members of the Jedi Order, there were ultimately never more than a dozen or so Inquisitors who returned. These Inquisitors were subjected to massive amounts of torture and physical conditioning. This was designed to break their spirit and their will. It's basically a more extreme version of boot camp, you know, wipe the slate clean, get rid of every notion you had about the world, and kind of relearn the Sith way. The only problem is the main drill sergeant here was Darth Vader. He does not have your well-being or even care about you being successful at whatever you're trying to do. And he also had a tendency to maim and wound people who made mistakes. I mean, as a boss, it is kind of nice to share something from your own past to your underlings so that they better understand you. Like in this case, it's dismemberment. Vader could have easily just brought the Six Brothers something lame like sand from Tatooine to help him understand who he is. But no, instead Vader shares this truly life-altering moment with the Sixth Brother, an event that I'm sure really helped shape Anakin into the quadruple amputee that he is now. I am actually going somewhere with this, just hold on. Because by being limbless, Vader had to rely on his connection to the Force for everything, and that made him a lot stronger. Limbs can be lost, but the Force will always be there for your little nubs. This is the mindset that a lot of Inquisitors had. They were relentless, brainwashed, and dedicated to the task at hand. They hungered for the power that Darth Vader held, and they were eager to please him, like hound dogs. Except for Reva. Reva was a problem. She managed to hide her hatred of Vader quite well. But the rest, they're all hound dogs. This means that the Inquisitorius weren't the most powerful Force users, but it didn't really matter because post-Order 66, you really just didn't have that many Force users left. And the Inquisitors were generally good enough for the job at hand, which mostly focused on capturing or killing rogue Jedi who managed to escape Order 66. Many of these were non-combatants or just elderly people and children. And also, the Inquisitors were tasked with finding unaffiliated or newly born Force sensitives and then capturing them. which is exactly what Dr. Hemlock needs for his Project Necromancer, individuals with a high M count. The Inquisitors were almost perfect for the job. They were very flexible, just like the agents of the ISB. The Inquisitors had their own chain of command that directly reported to Darth Vader and Palpatine, making them quite powerful in their own right. Although they don't have military ranks, an Inquisitor could pretty much march onto any Imperial base, demand access to it, and even acquire soldiers and vehicles for their own mission. Having the blessings of the Emperor on your side can really open a lot of doors, and it makes their job a lot easier. Also, being Force sensitive means that these Inquisitors can actually reach out and find Force sensitives. This is a skill they shared with the Jedi Seekers who used to recruit for the Order. But no, instead of using Inquisitors, Dr. Hemlock decides to outsource the job to the Public Bounty Hunter Network. This is really a strange move. As a chief scientist within the clandestine Advanced Science Division, Royce Hemlock had access to military resources. He could request for more TK troopers and clone commandos to be stationed at his facility. He could even sign off on his own away missions, and often did. He had access to the entire Imperial military, including some Special Forces elements, so why does he go to the open market, where every enemy of the Empire and scumbag freelancers can see what you're after? I mean, the Bad Batch found out about this plan through their pirate friend, who herself knew about it because of Asajj Ventress. Talk about a leaky ship. This is supposed to be one of the most secretive projects in the entire Empire. Remember guys, Project Necromancer, these high midichlorian count younglings, it's all here because Palpatine wants to be immortal. This is probably the most important thing that Darth Sidious has going on in the background, and so why would he just let this information out like this? Well, I think having the information that the Empire is after high M count children does not reveal Palpatine's true intentions. Sure, someone more knowledgeable about the Force like Asajj Ventress or someone knowledgeable about genetics like Nala Se might figure out things, especially if they could meet together and talk. But for the average bounty hunter, it's just a job. Connecting the dots will be very difficult for them. And considering the alternative, which I'll explain in a second, I think Palpatine was more than willing to take the risk. And so, who was Palpatine trying to hide this information from? Why is he having Dr. Hemlock use bounty hunters instead of Inquisitors? Well, I believe it's quite obvious. It's his own apprentice, Darth Vader. Remember, Darth Sidious is supposed to be a rule of two Sith, and at least during the early Empire period, Anakin Skywalker is being fed all the usual Sith propaganda and nonsense from Darth Sidious. Anakin has always been a very passionate and therefore extreme individual. He likes running into lightning face first, and he quickly adopts many of the beliefs of the Sith as well. He doesn't really think, he just acts. You guys remember his debate with Admiral Modi about the power of the Force compared to the Death Star, right? You'd think they were arguing about something truly contentious, like animal gun control, which unlike normal gun control, which seeks to place limits on human firearm ownership, simply seeks to keep weapons out of the hands of semi-intelligent species who might evolve to become a threat to humanity in the near future, like these chimpanzees and dolphins, and also this new thing I found on the internet. I don't know what it is, but I do not like it. Darth Vader had a very extreme view on the Force. He didn't like it when people dissed the thing that he liked. Natural reaction for a 10-year-old. And this is also probably the reaction he would have if he found out that Emperor Palpatine was going against the rule of two. This was a system created by Darth Bane after the chaos of the Old Republic era. Bane was an exceptionally bald Sith Lord, but he was alive at a time where great alliances were made, usually between several weaker Sith Lords who did have hair. Bane believed that only the strongest Sith warrior with the shiniest of dome pieces should be able to rule, and he was really upset that weaker Sith tended to band together and create alliances, which just goes against the whole idea of seizing power and not cooperating with each other. I mean, this is what happens when you get a bunch of Jedi pansies turning to the dark side and trying to act like Sith. They just aren't evil enough. Bane also realized that the Sith, like Philly sports fans, are completely chaotic, and when in large numbers gathered in one place, if they don't have an enemy fight, they'll soon be at each other's throats. And they also throw bottles. They always throw bottles for some reason. And so Darth Bane, in his very limited wisdom, decides to destroy the Sith Order. And he's basically the sole survivor. It's like in Civilization when you get to the atomic period and you're like, I don't want to deal with like my 60 cities and this 30-minute wait time in between turns. Let's just start over things. This great reset by Darth Bane marked the beginning of the Rule of Two era. Bane believed there should always just be a master and apprentice. The master will use the apprentice to help him reach his goals, and in return the apprentice will learn everything that the master teaches him about the dark side of the Force. At one point the apprentice will have learned everything, and they will become the master by killing their own master. This is essentially what happens when you take a person with zero social experience. I mean, this guy grew up in a mining colony to an abusive alcoholic dad who just beat the crap out of him. And then when he joins the Sith Order, Darth Bane can't even get along with any of the Sith Lords. He just hates everyone. This is what happens, okay, when you get an individual like this. He designs a complete social hierarchy system that does not take into account the very basic parts of human nature, like a person's desire to stay alive. It should surprise no one that throughout the Rule of Two period, almost every Sith Master tries to somehow turn the rules around when it's their time to die. The only type of person who would actually adhere to a system like this is someone who's very ideological, maybe has a romantic view on how things work, but is not really grounded in reality. Kind of like Anakin Skywalker in a lot of ways, who has a strong sense of purpose, but not necessarily the intelligence or wisdom to decipher what exactly is going on. I mean, remember, this guy just betrayed all of his friends, choked out his wife, which possibly led to a miscarriage, and then got completely owned by his brother/mentor, lost all of his limbs, and at the end, he can't even save his wife, which was the entire reason he joined the dark side in the first place and did all this horrible stuff. If you really think about it, the only thing that Vader has left now is the Rule of Two. This idea that he and his buddy Palpatine are gonna somehow work together and share power, it's gonna be great. And Palpatine understood this as well. Even though he is a psychopath, he still understands that even someone like Anakin has limits. He had completely broken Anakin at the end of the Clone Wars, and this man had very little left. And so the Rule of Two was important to Anakin. It was his only glimpse of a future. But the thing is, Palpatine did not give a crap about the Rule of Two. He was not a sucker. And the only thing he ever adhered to within that system was murdering his own master, Darth Plagueis, albeit before his master gave up all of his secrets to him. Since then, Sidious has been concerned about only one thing, and that is himself. He trained Darth Maul as a throwaway assassin. He trained Count Dooku as a political opposition for his falsely orchestrated war. He would also discard him as well. I don't think Palpatine saw any of these individuals as potential successors. I mean, Count Dooku was like 70 years old when he recruited him. And now Vader was also just Palpatine's enforcer, not really a partner. And guess what would help Darth Vader finally figure out that Darth Sidious was no longer interested in dying gracefully and giving up all of his knowledge to Vader? Well, it could be the project that is designed to bring Palpatine back from the dead. Yeah, Project Necromancer is complete heresy, according to some Sith. As a matter of fact, a young Palpatine probably criticized Darth Plagueis for being so obsessed with defeating death. He would even call him out for being afraid of death. But of course, things are always different when you are looking at your own mortality, as Palpatine would learn. And so Dr. Hemlock is being really sneaky here by not calling the Inquisitors. He gets the next best thing through Cad Bane, a Duros who specializes in stealing Force-sensitive babies, because calling the Inquisitors would immediately inform their commander Darth Vader that Emperor Palpatine was doing something Force-related behind his back, and that would cause Darth Vader to investigate. This also explains the scene with Dr. Hemlock and Tarkin when they're discussing what exactly is Project Necromancer.
Questions have been raised regarding the financial impact your facility is having upon Imperial resources. And now, additional funds have been diverted at your request?
I love how Tarkin starts out with his back to the holoprojector, fully knowing that, Hemlock's gonna call him. It's a complete power move.
That is correct. It is for a project that is of personal interest to the Emperor.
Which is what?
People are pointing out how out of character the scene kind of seemed, Tarkin being stonewalled, but that's just how important this project actually was. Question is, does Dr. Hemlock realize that he's just made an enemy out of one of the most vicious people in the entire Empire, an individual who destroys every project he touches? I know he thinks he has Palpatine's protection, but one day Dr. Hemlock will be walking around looking at that tablet, thinking he's going into his office, but he's actually walking through an airlock into vacuum. But I guess the fear of disobeying the Emperor is even scarier for Hemlock at this point, because if Tarkin knows about Project Necromancer, well, he'll probably want a part of it, and there's even a good chance that Tarkin will also let his good pal Darth Vader know about this. I mean, when the two aren't playing kinky games like hunting each other in the wild like Predator and Prey, they do seem to exchange correspondences occasionally, maybe compare notes on the best ways to torture a rebel spy and then skin them. Anyway, Dr. Hemlock's games here are just another example of the lack of trust that individuals at the very top of the Imperial command chain had for one another. The Sith ultimately are completely chaotic. They really just should never be in power because they just don't know how to work together. And I guess that is what governance is all about. It's about compromise. It's about ruling together as a committee and finding ways to share resources and cooperate. This is obviously something that could never happen in the Sith kind of inspired culture of the Empire. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. I'll see you next time.